Well, it's good to be here today in the presence of God, and we just want to share a word with you today, a prophetic word that was given to us by one of our team members in the week, and it's a very important word for the church today. So I'm going to ask Sarah to share that word with you now.
This word has come from reading the scriptures 2 Thessalonians 2, 1-12, which we did for homework in our meeting. Okay, I'm going to read it to you now. I'm going to read it word for word because I don't want to miss out on anything that's here. The appearance of the Antichrist and him sitting in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God, is a huge thing regarding recognising the signs of the times. And if Christians don't recognise it when it happens, they are really going to be left in the dark and extremely vulnerable to being deceived. Those who are expecting a man to literally sit in a temple and say, I am God, could well miss everything that points to the Antichrist and what he's doing if they're focused on that is still waiting for a temple to be built. The importance of the prophetic ministry is huge to make people aware of what is happening. The Antichrist is already brainwashing, uniting, planning and preparing, and if Christians are not aware, they could end up standing in line waiting to be microchipped, that's the mark of the beast, wondering when the temple is going to be built and when this nasty man will sit in it and say that I'm God. Thrill seekers who are not close to God will also be vulnerable to the signs and lying wonders of Satan, spoken of in verse 9. After all, these things look good even though they are spiritually bad. Verse 10 speaks of the true gospel, and the word must be preached so people have the chance to hear and receive it. If they reject it, then it's down to them. Serious delusion, spoken of in verse 11, is waiting for those who reject the truth.
And so there are many books written about the last day temple before the Lord returns. I have one here. Look how thick it is. I've been wading through it. I've studied the scriptures on it for many, many years, and about the temple and the time of the return of the Lord, last day stuff, eschatology, and I've read many books and theological books and so on it, and different authors, and but at the end of the day, it can be a distraction. I mean, when you think about it, why? We know there's a temple building project going on in Israel at the moment, in Jerusalem, and we know what stands in the place where God has set his name, the dome. And, and people are hoping and are praying, believing that they'll be able to set up the Jewish temple there before Jesus returns. But is that necessary? I mean, when God returns, does he need the help of man to build a structure for him to rule and reign over in Jerusalem on that day? And when he does return, that dome is going to fall, because that's the place where God's put his name. That's why Satan's put that dome there, that Muslim mosque building. And so that will be removed, but God certainly doesn't need the help of man to build a temple. So it can be a distraction, this, and we can get all the books on it and wait for the temple to be built before we start to believe that the time of Jesus' return is near, the Antichrist is near, and all the things, events surrounding it are going to happen. So don't be distracted. That word what Sarah gave, it's worth listening to again and writing down a few points here. It is a prophetic word, and I believe it's God awakening us to what is really happening. Antichrist is already here, and we need to be aware of this. It's already happening, all these things. Don't be distracted by the temple project or the building of a new temple and so on. Thank you for listening today.